Yes, we are ready to talk about a sector that we all deal with in our day-to-day lives. Fast-moving consumer goods or FMCG sector is the next topic for discussion today, and we have with us Mr. Raghuram Ramakrishnan from NDB Securities joining us.
Thank you, and it's good to be back here again for another discussion. Thank you.
Right, so let's start our conversation from talking about the overall consumption patterns in Sri Lanka during the last couple of months.
Yes. So if you look at private consumption, or in other term household expenditure, is a primary measurement on how the particular consumers in the country have spent their money on products and services during the period. That also would reflect how the economic activities in a particular economy is shaping up, and that also would reflect in the GDP. So the private consumption in a country is a very good indicator for the overall GDP growth. If you look at in the Sri Lankan context, in 1980, the private consumption as a percentage of GDP was around 80%, but it had come down to 68% in 2015. Though on a proportional wise it had come down, if you look at in absolute term, it has recorded a positive growth. Since 1980 to 2015, for last 35 years, if you look at the compound annual growth rate, which has recorded around 8.8%. During the same period, if you look at the GDP, have recorded 7.9. So in Sri Lanka, the private consumption have recorded or almost mimicked the GDP growth, or if not, it had grown a bit higher pace than the GDP. Though private consumption as a percentage of GDP had come down to 68%, Sri Lanka is still regarded as one of the heavy consumption country. If I could able to draw you for China, for example, if you take China's private consumption as a percentage of GDP is around 30%, and whereas ours is at 68. So we are still a consumption heavy economy, and going forward we expect private consumption to drive our growth as well going forward.
Okay, so what do you see as the reasons for the sector growth to slow down compared to last year, or any particular areas or segments that you identify with the drop in consumption?
You're having said that the private consumption have recorded above the GDP growth. If you look at 2016, the growth has stagnated, or it had actually dropped from 2015 level. The main reason could be supply pushed inflation. If you would have known, in the country in 2016 we have seen severe drought and severe flood, so that had increased the price levels in the country, and that has shot up the inflation. With inflation, interest rate also have moved up, and our currency LKR has depreciated. So all these factors have impacted the private consumption during 2015. Since our discussion will be on FMCG, the fast-moving consumer good is one of the segment that would get impacted by slowing down in the private consumption. If I could define the FMCG based on industry classification standard, the FMCG is defined as products that are sold quickly and at a lower rate. So FMCG would include food, beverages. The beverage would include alcoholic and non-alcoholic, the personal hygiene factors, and the final one is others, and others would include the tobacco segment as well. So the FMCG is, since our discussion, I would like to draw upon the FMCG is what the segment would get affected by the slowing down in private consumption.
Okay, so what you see as the largest subsectors that has formed private consumption in Sri Lanka?
Yeah. When we talk about private consumption, we should look into what are the factors or what are the components that make up the private consumption. As anyone would have guessed, the food and non-alcoholic item is the largest component, which account for roughly 29% of the overall private consumption, followed by transportation, which accounted for 21.4%, and the third being housing, utilities and other fuels, which account for roughly 11.4%. On the FMCG side, I would like to draw upon the flood has main reason why the FMCG is decreased, and since our discussion will be on FMCG, I would like to draw upon bring the discussion towards dairy, poultry, alcohol and the tobacco going forward.
Okay, how about the presence in stock market? Any subsectors of FMCG that have substantial presence in the stock market?
Yeah, if you look at Colombo Stock Exchange, which have made out of 21 sectors, and one sector has been allocated towards the FMCG, the companies which are in FMCG being allocated one particular sector known as beverage, food and tobacco. Incidentally, the BFT segment is the second largest segment as far as the market cap is concerned. So I would like to draw upon the FMCG, under FMCG, the dairy industry, the dairy FMCG. Under the FMCG industry, I would like to take upon the dairy, poultry, alcohol and the tobacco segment, and we shall discuss as we move along with the discussion.
Okay, as you mentioned, dairy industry having substantial presence in the stock market. Can you talk about the current context of dairy industry in Sri Lanka?
Yeah, if you look at Sri Lanka dairy industry, roughly around 65 to 70% of our milk-based production are being catered by the imported product. Though the government of Sri Lanka, the previous regime as well as the current regime, has done so much to induce the growth in the dairy industry, the Sri Lankan dairy industry hasn't been achieved its full potential. If I can draw up to 2000 to 2015, 15-year compound annual growth rate of milk production, which includes cows and buffalo milk, had grown only by 5%. So we are still relying on the imported milk-based product. If you look at the per capita consumption of our country, which is still around 49 liters per annum, per capita 49 liters per annum. The Medical Institute research have suggested that at least particular country or per capita consumption should be at least 100 liters if you want to have all the nutrition in place. So we are still lacking, about 50% should go up as well. And if you compare that with the developed countries such as the UK, Australia and New Zealand, their per capita consumption is around 100 liters. So that shows the dairy industry have full of potential going forward, and the government have given a lot of initiatives to prop up the dairy industry as well. And if you look at the dairy industry, what comprises about roughly 80% of the milk-based product is consumed as milk powder. And followed by yogurt is accounted for 5.4%, and ice cream account for 4.7%, and the fresh milk, interestingly the fresh milk in Sri Lanka just account for 2.7%. If you look why the fresh milk consumption in Sri Lanka is one of the lowest, despite it has a lot of nutritional benefit as opposed to milk powder. So when you produce or when you manufacture the milk powder, since it has go through high heating process, all the nutritional would taken away. So no point of bringing milk powder. So we should have more fresh milk consumption. So why mainly Sri Lankan population would like to have milk powder is the one reason cited by the industry personnel is Sri Lanka is the country which has lowest refrigerator penetration at a rate of 60%. So that shows more than 2 million households don't possess a refrigerator. So then hence they can't, most of the milk-based product like cheese, yogurt, ice cream, fresh milk, you need to put it in the fridge to increase the shelf life. So that is one of the reason, because we don't have much penetration rate. If you compare that with Thailand and the global average, Thailand has about 85% refrigerator penetration, China has about 90% refrigerator penetration, whereas the global average is 80%. So we are still lacking. That's one reason why fresh milk consumption is lower. The second interesting fact is University of Peradeniya had conducted a survey. The Sri Lankan child preferred to drink milk powder because the milk powder tastes better than the fresh milk. These are the two main reasons cited by the industry professionals why our dairy industry, why there aren't much growth for the fresh milk per se.
Okay, so what do you see as the key factors hindering growth of this industry, and what are the measures that should be taken to improve this industry?
Yeah, as far as the industry sources, what we believe is why dairy industry hasn't been unlocked its true potential is, if you look at the collection rate, if a country produces 100 liters of the milk, the collection has been only 60 liters. We have 60% collection rate. If you compare it with the European Union, that has about 94%. So our collection rate is still lower. The main reason why the collection rate is lower, we don't have enough collection point. we don't have enough chilling points. So those are the reasons cited by the industry professionals. And on top of that, we don't have high yielding cows. We don't have good equipment, and our workforce doesn't know the technical know-how how to breed and how to milk the cows. Those are the supply side constraint, and the demand side constraint, as I alluded before. One is the lowest penetration rate as far as refrigerator is concerned, and there are a lot of potential, but still because of the supply side constraint we couldn't able to unlock the full potential. If you look at what are the initiatives that have been taken by the government of Sri Lanka has planned, or actually they have brought down the high yielding cows from Australia and New Zealand. For example, if you take Sri Lankan cows, that per day yielding is about roughly 3 to 4 liters per day, whereas the Australian and New Zealand cow could yield up to 18 to 20 based on the environment. So and one more important fact how they have increasing the dairy industry is they have brought up the farm gate price per liter to 70 rupees from 60 rupees. So those are the initiatives that have been taken by the government, and going forward we expect the dairy industry would realize the full potential.
All right, thank you very much for joining us today, and we got to wind up for today. So thank you for being with us. See you next week. Until then, good night.